If you are looking for an easy flower to add some beautiful color to your Australian garden at the end of winter and the beginning of spring, daffodils are definitely worth considering. Daffodils are one of the most recognizable spring flowering bulbs. Their botanical name belongs to the genus Narcissus, and although we normally imagine the classic bright yellow trumpet-shaped flower when we hear the word daffodil, there are actually many different types, colors, shapes, and sizes available. So, if you are new to gardening and thinking about growing daffodils in Australia, here are some of the basic things you need to know. First, let's talk about their growing season. Daffodils are spring-flowering bulbs, but depending on the variety and where you live, you can start seeing flowers from late winter. Different varieties continue flowering through spring. This means that if you select early, mid-season, and late-flowering varieties, you can enjoy daffodils over a much longer period, instead of having all of them flower at once. In the cooler parts of Australia, including Victoria, Tasmania, and other areas with cold winters, daffodils generally perform very well. They can also be grown in warmer areas, although the growing conditions and varieties you choose become more important. So when should you plant them? The best time to plant daffodil bulbs is during autumn. In Australia, spring flowering bulbs are generally planted from around February through to May, with autumn being the main planting period. When buying daffodil bulbs, look for healthy, firm, and plump bulbs. Avoid bulbs that feel very soft, damaged, or moldy. Daffodils like well-drained soil because bulbs can rot if they remain constantly wet. Choose somewhere with plenty of sunlight or some partial shade. Avoid very dark, heavily shaded areas because this can reduce flowering. You can grow daffodils directly in your garden, underneath deciduous trees, along pathways and garden borders, or even in pots. They look particularly beautiful when several bulbs are planted together in groups rather than planting just one bulb by itself. When planting, place the pointed end of the bulb facing upwards and the root end facing down. A useful general rule is to cover the bulb so it is planted roughly twice as deep as the bulb's size. Follow the instructions on the packet for your particular variety because recommended depth and spacing can vary. Now let's look at the different types of daffodils. There are thousands of daffodil cultivars around the world, and they are grouped into different divisions according to the shape and characteristics of their flowers. You can find the traditional yellow trumpet daffodils, large-cupped and small-cupped varieties, double daffodils, miniature daffodils, and multi-flowering types. Jonquils are also members of the Narcissus group. Some popular names you may come across in Australia include King Alfred-style yellow trumpet daffodils, tete-a-tete miniature daffodils, early cheer, and Sir Winston Churchill. And here's something beginners may not realize. Not every daffodil has the same level of fragrance. Some varieties have very little noticeable scent, while others are wonderfully fragrant. Jonquil-type narcissus are particularly well known for their sweet fragrance. Early cheer is a beautiful example. It produces clusters of creamy double flowers and is famous for having a strong fragrance. Sir Winston Churchill is another beautiful double-flowering narcissus that is known for its fragrance. Traditional large yellow trumpet daffodils are usually grown more for their impressive flowers than for a powerful perfume. So if fragrance is important to you, don't simply buy a bulb because it says daffodil. Check the variety description and specifically look for fragrant narcissus or jonquil varieties. Another common question is, how long does a daffodil flower last? An individual flower generally gives you around 1 to a few weeks of display, depending on the variety, temperature, sunlight, wind, and other growing conditions. Cooler weather usually helps the flowers remain attractive for longer, while unusually warm conditions can shorten the display. However, the plant itself does not die when the flower disappears. This is one of the most important things for new gardeners to understand. After flowering, you can remove the finished flower head, but don't immediately cut off all those green leaves. The leaves continue photosynthesizing and sending energy back into the underground bulb. That stored energy helps the bulb produce next year's flowers. Allow the foliage to remain for at least another 6 to 8 weeks, or until it naturally turns yellow and dies back. Once the foliage has completely died down, the bulb enters its dormant period underground. And then the amazing cycle starts again. The bulb remains underground through its dormant period. With the return of suitable cool season conditions, roots and shoots develop again. Leaves emerge, flower buds develop, the plant flowers, and after flowering, the leaves once again replenish the bulb before dying back. That's why daffodils can return year after year. They are perennial bulbs, not plants that you normally need to replace every year. They can actually multiply as well. The easiest way to propagate daffodils at home is through bulb division. Over the years, the original bulb produces smaller bulbs or offsets around it. Eventually, you can end up with a large clump. After several years, if the clump becomes overcrowded and produces fewer flowers, wait until the plants have finished their growing cycle and become dormant. You can carefully lift the bulbs, separate the offsets, and replant them. Daffodils can also reproduce from seed, but this is much slower. Seed-grown bulbs can take several years before they're mature enough to flower, so dividing established bulbs is much easier for the average home gardener. What about the price? Prices in Australia vary considerably depending on the variety, bulb size, supplier, and number of bulbs in the packet. Common daffodils are usually relatively inexpensive when purchased in multi-packs, while unusual double, miniature, specialty, or strongly fragrant varieties can cost more per bulb. Buying larger packs is normally more economical if you're planning a mass display. One final tip is particularly important. After your daffodils finish flowering, don't think that those untidy yellowing leaves mean the plant has failed. That is simply part of its natural life cycle. Give the leaves time to feed the bulb before removing them. With good drainage, enough sunlight, and a little patience, daffodils can multiply and return to brighten your garden for many years. So if you are a beginner gardener in Australia and want something that brings beautiful color after winter without requiring complicated care, daffodils are a wonderful bulb to try. Plant them in autumn, wait through winter, and when those first yellow, white, or creamy flowers begin appearing, you'll know that spring is on its way.